Ujambo, Asabuhi, greetings to everyone who's tuning in. Welcome to day 2 of our conference. This is the Pan-African Unity Parish, a call for the abolition of neo-colonialism conference. I am Ikemba Ojore, a representative of the International People's Democratic Uhuru Movement, which falls under the leadership of President Columbai Antoinette, which is also an affiliate organization of the African People's Socialist Party under the leadership of Chairman Omali Yeshitela. MPDM is a member organization of the African Unity Movement for Decolonization, the coalition who has organized and put together this great and powerful conference. The purpose of this conference is to deepen our understanding of neo-colonialism, which is a continuation of colonialism, direct rulership colonialism under European political economic domination. So when we are talking about neo-colonialism, we're talking about the shifting from white direct rulership to white rulership that comes in the form of blackface. So this conference is to deepen our understanding, to educate, to look, to inspire and motivate people who are participants in this conference to continue to work to abolish neo-colonialism, colonialism, in whatever form it may come in. So I want to appreciate everybody for joining us for another day of this conference. This is the 100-year anniversary of Marcus Garvey's appeal to the League of Nations for Ethiopia to be handed over to the African people after being seized from Italy. So today, July 21st, marks the anniversary. Thus, his photo in the reception hall. Many of you see Marcus Garvey's photo when you come in the reception hall. And I think Marcus Garvey, too, is fitting for this particular conference when we're talking about Pan-African unity or parish, because it was Marcus Garvey that said that if we don't do what other nations have done, if we don't do what the Europeans have done and other nations have done, that we would die. And that was the words of Marcus Garvey. And so we want to carry on the legacy of Marcus Garvey in this conference and beyond, because it's important that not just individuals coming together and organizing, but even the various Pan-African organizations that are out there doing the work to abolish colonialism, neo-colonialism, to come together, to work together, to bring about the elimination or the destruction of a system that has for centuries been able to thrive off of the exploitation and oppression of African people on the continent and abroad. So I want to appreciate everybody for being a part of this and understanding that, this conference is to uplift the urgency that is needed for African people to get organized and do the work to bring about our liberation. So with that being said, again, this is day 2. Hope everyone is excited because we have a lot of great speakers still to come. Yesterday was such a powerful display powerful display by our speakers who put out a lot of information I thought that was necessary and helped deepen our understanding of what neo-colonialism is and how the colonizer uses, whether it's the media to manipulate us into not understanding how colonialism works or neo-colonialism works, how we're distracted through the media. We had such great speakers as Dr. Jared Ball, who talked about neo-colonialism as well and the forms that it may come and some of the distractions by some of the nativist organizations who, I won't name, but some of the native organizations that sort of distract us and help divide African people, doing the work of the colonizing and keeping us from really uniting and doing the work to whether it's to bring about reparations, which is due, or to bring about the revolution, which is needed. So, today is a continuation of that. The first keynote speaker that we have today, I think, is the way that we should set this off with Baba Mukasa Dada Ricks, who is a Black Power legend. And, I've being a historian myself, I've always heard about Baba Ricks when studying the Black Power movement and his contribution to the civil rights movement, as well as the transition from civil rights to a struggle for human rights and Black power. And so, Baba Willie Ricks was there. He represents the foundation of the 60s Black Power struggle, I think, when we think of people like Kwame Ture and SNCC, the Black Panther Party, and many of the other organizations, the Republic of New Africa, many of the other organizations that fought to secure land and to secure liberation. Baba Ricks was there to help with that transition. So it's my pleasure to, introduce him as our first keynote speaker, just to give his background. Willie Ricks, also known as Mukasa Dada, was a prominent civil rights activist, community organizer, and leader in the struggle for equal rights in the United States. Ricks first gained recognition for his work alongside John Lewis as a field secretary in SNCC. While a member of SNCC, Ricks actively planned and organized sit-ins, marches, and public demonstrations throughout Tennessee, Georgia, South Carolina, Alabama, and Mississippi. Following an intellectual and ideological split from SNCC, Ricks became active in the Black Panther Party along with friend and colleague Stokely Carmichael, where he coined and helped popularize the slogan of Black Power. And so coming up, this morning to set off day 2 of our conference is going to be Baba Willie Ricks. And so welcome. We have him here, and I'm going to step to the back and pass you the microphone. I want to say it's an honor to have you here, Baba Mukasa Dada Ricks, and I'm looking forward to hearing your presentation.
Well, thank you very kindly. It's an honor to be in the company of all these good and great Pan-Africanists and people that's working for the liberation of our people. And that historically, when we talk about the movement, we definitely can't forget people, SNCC and the African People's Socialist Party, Chairman O'Malley, and the contribution that they have made in terms of direct action and building a strong movement for the liberation of our people. And then again, historically, people gave me the microphone mostly when we needed to move the people forward and to attack the enemy in some form or another. And that today, when you hear me speak, or as I speak, if you feel that you need to go out and start fighting and organizing, please feel free to do it, because the situation is still the same as it was when we first started sitting in. I just want to say that I was in SNCC, and SNCC was a organization of organizers, and that we concentrated on organizing. And what SNCC did was send people to different areas, and their job was to organize that area and to build organization and to build a movement and to create leadership on the local level and elder leadership, and also create a youth leadership for being the shock troops the ones that were carried out and go in directly into battle and face the guns, the bombs, the dogs, the jails, and even death. And that this is the attitude that SNCC had organizing, and that where other organizations were great mobilizers, and they mobilized people, and what we would do is bring people together, thousands of people, hundreds of people together, make a powerful speech to them, have a march, and then go. But SNCC attitude was to go in, organize, and stay there and be part of the movement, not as the leader, but as an organizer and as an advisor, but participate fully in what the local people are doing. And these are the things that we did. And that from doing these things, we created a mass movement in Mississippi and Alabama in different areas. But in Mississippi, where we would organize local groups in different counties and cities, in Mississippi, we did follow that pattern, but in Mississippi, we organized a state movement where everybody in the state came together. I guess a form of Pan-Africanism, because we had many, many groups and counties all over the state of Mississippi. And that at one point, we were under attack by the state or government, all of them were attacking, federal, local, whatever, and local groups. And that we saw the need to bring it together, and we built a large organization, a mass organization called the Mississippi Freedom Democratic Party. And then we brought together all the different organizations in that area, and it was COFO, Federation of Organizations. And we put them all together, and we came up with one leadership, and we began to come up with the right ideas to go and organize people. But we were able to put together peasants, and we had to build schools for these peasants, because a lot of them were very educated people that had never had a lot of schooling in terms of math and reading and what have you. We had to we set reading school to teach people how to read, because in order to even try to register to vote, you had to read, you had to memorize the certain parts of the Constitution, and in some cases you had to know how many seeds were in a watermelon or how many feathers was in a chicken and whatever. And we had to teach people not to have fear, and that the white people that was putting terror in our people, we had to go out and attack them in different forms, but we would attack them. And we would go to the courthouse where the sheriff or killer operated from, and we would attack them at the courthouse. And we would stand on their steps and call them a sack of no good murderers and racists and killers and we didn't have the word colonialism at that time, so we used the word hunkies and crackers and all that, but those are words for colonialism as we interpret today. But when they would come, and because we tried to stand up and demand our human rights and our dignity, they would come and put bombs in our churches, burn down the schools, burn down the places where we would have meetings like they did in Lee County, Georgia, burn down 3 churches in one night, put bombs in the church in Birmingham and blew it up. And they blew up many, many places in Mississippi. Churches burnt down and people lynched, killed, murdered. But that movement continued. But as the Black power, the Black movement in Mississippi got stronger, it influenced our other movements around the world too. and that in Alabama, we are facing all these bombs and guns. At some point, we put together a local organization in Lowndes County, Alabama, where we officially said we would pick up weapons and defend ourselves when these people came to shoot us, to bomb us. We would be waiting for them, and we began publicly with having guns and saying we are going to defend us. And they called us Black Panthers, and we became known as Black Panthers in that area. And a lot of people around the country, or young people, thought that was a heroic. And that then from Black Panther to inside of SNCC, we had sent a delegation, Miss Hamer, Ruby Dowers, and other delegation to Africa, where they met with African leaders and talked about, I looked at two things. They looked at a Pan-Africanist leader. They looked at Africa. They looked at Black people governing themselves. And they also looked at a nation that was practicing scientific socialism. And that as the movement moved on, we began to be attacked. And as we went on the offense, by 1965, we had guns and what have you. And by 1966, we decided that John Lewis was a great hero in the civil rights movement early on, and that he was a very heroic young man. But at that time, by 1966, after we had began to get more militant, we decided that we need more of a offensive leader, aggressive leader, and we voted John Lewis out and voted Stokely Carmichael in, Kwame Ture now. And he came in shortly after he came the chairman. They shot a brother that integrated to the University of Mississippi, James Meredith, and we decided to carry that march on. And now the civil rights and the civil rights leaders and all of us came together at the Lorraine Motel and said, we're going to carry this march on because this is an insult for them shooting James Meredith, and we have to carry it on. And the reason we had to carry on, it was a march against fear. And that when the march against fear, he was trying to tell people that they passed a voters' rights bill, but yet they have committed terrorism against you for hundreds of years, and that are blown up, killed, lynched, murdered, burned down churches, schools, and everything else. And now they say you can vote, and you've been killed for doing all this, and on the plantation, put off your land, and they had put so much fear in our people that James Meredith decided to tell them, don't have fear, and walk through Mississippi with a sign. And as he walked through Mississippi, the first day he was shot. And Dr. King and Roy Wilkins and Floyd McKissick, and we brought in the Deacons for Defense out of Bogalusa. And we met at that hotel and said, we're going to carry the march home, but we let them know that we were going to be a little violent. If they violent on us, we're going to be violent on them. And that civil rights guys pulled out, but Dr. King and Floyd McKissick of CORE decided to stay, and we took them through Mississippi, and Kwame Ture Stokely let them know that this is SNCC territory, and we went through Mississippi. On the first day, Stokely got in fact with the state trooper physically, and then as we walked through Mississippi, we put some fire in them, and they saw that SNCC was the young organizers, and we had been in that territory, and we had faced war in the state of Mississippi. But when we took them down there, we had organized the workers, the peasants, and we had been in those cotton fields and what have you, and that we definitely had respect from the people in Mississippi because they had went out and they have led and took us to many battles, because at any given time or any given day, SNCC had 100 demonstrations, 100 marches, or whatever. But we were all over. We were just one person or one march. We were fighting all over. So on any given day, you had 100 demonstrations. We were always somewhere doing something. And that when we went through Mississippi with Dr. King, we called those peasants out, Miss Hamer, and all the local people that we had worked with, COFO people and Mississippi Freedom Democratic Party people, all of them came out, and the people that we had influenced, they came out with Black Power. And when we got down there, we told them that, look, Stokely said, look, we're going to hit them with this Black Power. I said, let's go. And that we went in there and we started hitting them with Black Power. And we told them we don't want this freedom now anymore, because that's not where we want to go. Because freedom now, they saw that as being a very militant call on the March on Washington. They didn't want us to have a sign that said freedom now. They wanted to say freedom, but now they wouldn't. You need to wait, and that's too militant. But we carried our sign even to the March on Washington, freedom now. And now we come out with Black Power. And we hit them with Black Power somewhere around Greenwood, Mississippi. That day they beat up Stokely and Martin King and threw all of them in jail. And that we round up the masses of the people, and we had a mass rally in Greenwood, Mississippi, and we hit them with Black Power. We want Black Power. If we had Black Power, they couldn't beat us. They couldn't jail us. We wouldn't be sharecropping. We wouldn't be starving to death. If we had Black Power, we could build schools. We could build nice houses. We wouldn't be living in shacks. We would have running water. We would have toilets. We wouldn't have outhouses. They wouldn't be killing us and lynching us and hanging us from trees. We need Black Power. And we started hitting with Black Power, and looked like Black Power got in the soul of everybody, and the peasants all over Mississippi and are coming out by the hundreds, and they were Black Power, Black Power, and my name became Black Power. I was Black Power, Black Power, and as we marched down through there, we began to add a little bit to our speeches. And I remember when we were at a courthouse trying to get on the courthouse. The sheriff come out with his guns and police. You can't have this courthouse. You can't use this courthouse and make no speech. And we said, yes, we can. And he said, no, you can't. He said, we can't use it. We'll burn it down. And the sheriff said, nigga, this courthouse is fireproof. And I said, well, we'll blow that mother up then. And but it got more militant and more militant. As we marched down through there, we started shutting down them folks. Shut that freedom now, shut up. We want Black Power. And we started talking about Black Power and getting aggressive. And as they fought us, and we began to, talk about war and whatever. And I remember when we got to Yazoo City that morning, Dr. King, I would go out. My job was to go out and just rouse the people up all around Mississippi and come back to the march. And that night have them ready. And as we got to different places, I'd go all out on Mississippi. I had troops out there. We would fire it up. And that as we fired them up, Black Power, and we went toward Yazoo City. We went to a bunch of cities, but Yazoo was one of them. And that's when Dr. King that day, he decided to go over to Philadelphia, over there where they killed Cheney, Swan, and Goodman, lynched them. He'd go over there and lead a march, but when he led a march, he didn't understand Sheriff Rainey and them. And when he led the march down there, they ran a truck right through the middle of the march, running over people. And then they had to get Dr. King out of there because people started throwing bricks and bars and fighting and busting white folks upside the head and burn a couple of places and whatever. And then that night they decided to come over in the African neighborhood and shoot it up. and there was a young man named Ralph Featherstone. He organized over there. And when they came, they were waiting. They knew they were coming. And when they cut shooting, they started shooting back. And when they some white folk got shot. And that early on that day, Dr. King had said, tonight, Willie Ricks, I'm going to introduce you and you introduce me. And I said, no problem, Martin. And as we got in the Azure City and got up on the truck, our attitude had changed. And that when I got up on the truck, I saw that the SCLC people were acting sort of hostile. And that I think they bagged out. We introduced each other that night. And that, but when they got up there, I made my speech, we want Black Power. And what I said that when the police came in our neighborhood and they shot at us and we shot back and they got killed, that's Black Power. We need Black Power. We need to organize. We need to, whatever I said, I don't know. But anyway, and after I speak, Dr. King got up and said, we don't need no Black Power. We don't need no white power. We don't need no brown power. We don't need no yellow power. We had the folks already planned and ready. And when they said, we don't need no Black Power, we started screaming, Black Power, Black Power. And so Black Power became dominant. And then as we got to Canton, Mississippi, that's when they bombed us. We gathered hundreds of people, maybe thousands, a couple thousand, I don't know, but a lot of people. And that we were on a truck, and we got on top of the truck. We saw hundreds of police surrounding the march, and Dr. King and Quamp Stokely and Floyd McKissick and Hosea Williams, they were on the truck. And when they called a meeting on the truck, so we're getting ready to get attacked. And Dr. King and Stokely and Floyd McKissick said, look, all of us can't go to jail. So Dr. King, Stokely, and Floyd said, look, Hosea Williams and Willie Ricks, so y'all are assigned to get back up. Don't go to jail. Don't get hurt. And if we get hurt, we're assigning y'all to take the leadership, and y'all will have to mobilize the people and be the organizers and take the leadership if we got hurt. So we were assigned to be the leaders in case Dr. King, Stokely, and all of them got hurt. And so we bagged off the march and we stood back, and we went in the house right behind the school where we were on the ground, and we watched them bomb the march. And when they bombed the march, Hosea and I, we just couldn't stand back. So we ran up in there. And when we ran up in there, we were able to pick Dr. King up, pick Stokely up, Kwame Ture, up off the ground, because that tear gas and all the bombing that they had did knocked them off the top of the truck. And I was able to pick Martin and Stokely up, and we walked down the road, down the playground a few steps, and Andrew Young was there, and he was crying, and all our people saying, cussing white folks out, cussing the police out, and throwing a few bricks or whatever. And Andy was crying, saying, y'all stop. Willie Rick, y'all just stop. Don't throw no bricks. Let's go back to where we go to the hotel. Let's go figure this out and whatever. But that was a very militant group, and Black Power hit very strong. And as we marched on down the street, Black Power movement continued. And then as about a week, day or two later, we ended up at Tougaloo College, and that's where I met my wife, matter of fact, at Tougaloo. And that and James Brown came in and did a sang and whatever Black Power songs and music for the Black Power March. And that Sunday we marched, and when we marched down the street on Sunday, Hosea and them, they were trying to, well, one of the things we did, we early in the march, we kicked all the white folks out and told them to go organize white people in the white neighborhood. You can't organize black people in the black neighborhood or in our neighborhood, because if you tell them to go do something, if I tell them to do it and they do it, it's militant and whatever. But if you tell them to do it, they obey another white man. And that we need you to go in your neighborhood and organize white people and teach them to be revolutionaries and whatever. And we kicked the white people off the march. And we told the white people to get off the march. It became a black march all the way, black power. And as we got into on that day of the march, last march, after we left Tula and walked down to the Capitol to have our mass demonstration, Hosea Williams called in white people again, and they tried to drown out. They brought a band in trying to drown out Black Power, but we were Black Power and still. And then the white people come in with American flags, and I got my crew, and we went out and took all the flags from the white people and said, anybody that was carrying the flag, matter of fact, even a couple of Uncle Tom, you call them neo-colonialists nowadays, and we took the flag from those people and put them in a pile, and then we just put some fluid on them and burnt the flags, and they accused us of desecrating the flag. I didn't know what the word means back then. But we burnt the flags and we was proud of it. But then Black Power had hit them so hard that the militancy of it, people began to say, what is this Black Power? What do they mean by Black Power? And when we hit them with Black Power, Kwame now, Stokely becoming the spokesman for Black Power, he began to debate all the neo-colonialists, or Uncle Toms as we called them, and he began to debate them and talk about what Black Power is. But then Black Power got its great definition from the rebellions that started taking place, especially Detroit. Detroit led the way. And when they had a rebellion in Detroit, whatever caused rebellion, I guess social economic conditions caused the rebellion. But when they had the rebellion, they started burning down the city, and war broke out in Detroit. And that where they brought the army in and everybody, but there were dead bodies laying all over Detroit, and little children being shot, tanks rolling down the street, 82nd Airborne laying in there to contain the African people in Detroit, but the city's burning down, and the slogan is Black Power. And then all the cities began to burn down, and all of them began to say, we want Black Power, we want Black Power. And the city's burning down, and they were expressing themselves saying, we need power, we need economic power, we need social power, we need to solve the problem that we have in our condition. And this condition is all over this country because all the cities began to burn down. And that all the civil rights people, all the neo-colonialists, they brought them to the Uncle Toms, as we call them. They brought them to the forefront, and they said, we don't want no Black Power. We, the white man, said, we don't want no Black Power. The government officials, police, we don't want no Black Power. And all the Uncle Toms are saying, we don't want no Black Power. But then Stokely Carmichael, H. Rap Brown, became the spokesman for Black Power. And as they spoke for Black Power, all the nationalist groups around the country began to fall under the leadership of the Black Power movement, and SNCC was the spokesman for it. So we had respect from all the young people in the cities and everywhere, Black Power. And then this Black Power began to spread through the Caribbean, South Africa, and other places. And that Black Power began to be an influence. Now, going back a little bit, in 1965, John Lewis, Cleve Sellers, Winnicott Hall, Jim Foreman, who's a great leader, Jim Foreman, and myself, we went to the United Nations, kicked the door down, went in there and beat up the South African embassy staff, and we said, free Robert Sobukwe, free Mandela, free the people in South Africa. And we, SNCC, now join in with the South Africa movement. And we joined in with the South African movement. We began to talk about and learn more about the conditions of the people inside of South Africa. Now, early on, Odinga Oginga from the Mau Mau in Kenya came to Atlanta, and where they would let them stay in a hotel, and we who lived here couldn't stay in those hotels. He was an African prime minister. He stayed in a hotel. We went to the hotel, and we went out there and started calling him, Odinga, 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 and he came out. And when he came out and spoke to us, we now come to talk about Uhuru. That's why you had an Uhuru movement down there in Florida today. And then we started saying Uhuru, Uhuru. And as we called out Uhuru, it means freedom and freedom now. And we talked about the Mau Mau's, and the Mau Mau was in Africa fighting against colonialism, fighting against the slavery and everything that's going on in Africa. And the Mau Mau's were fighting. So our movement now joined in with the Mau Mau's. Now in 1965, we joined in with the movements in Tanzania, what they call South Africa. And we went to jail a couple of times, went to prison. And at the same time, when we went to jail, Harry Belafonte, Sidney Poitier, and Miriam Makeba got us out of jail. And that when Miriam got us out of jail, we started, learning more about Africa and whatever. And as Africa come up, we began to see that was a movement, and the same people look like us, act like us, and was under the same condition that we were under, was on the African continent. But not only was the people on the African continent, we began to, at the same time in 1966, they killed one of our workers named Sammy Young Jr., and he was in Tuskegee organizing. And when he went into a bathroom that said white only, they shot him in the head with a shot him in the head with a shotgun for going in the bathroom. This is white only. We came out, and the next day we had a press conference and say if a African, a black man, can go to the army and come back and can't piss in a bathroom behind a white man, we ain't got no business fighting no war in Vietnam. We opposed the war in Vietnam. And when we opposed the war in Vietnam, we just ran Julian Bond for office and got him in there, and they kicked him out because he opposed the war in Vietnam, and that built another movement. And now we are opposing the war in Vietnam. We called on our people to resist the war in Vietnam, and they went out and we started resisting. Some people went to prison for demonstrating at army bases and whatever. But we began to speak out against the war in Vietnam. When we spoke out against the war in Vietnam, we called on people to come out. And thousands and tens of thousands and millions of people came out and opposed the war in Vietnam. And at the same time they were opposing the war in Vietnam, the cities were burning down on fire. And they had to fight two wars, one in the city, us, one in these cities burning down, and the war in Vietnam. And we saw ourselves as part of the Vietnamese Revolution, and we helped the Vietnamese defeat the United States. So we were part of it. And some of our sneak people went to Vietnam, and like some of them went to Cuba. And Castro began to teach them about socialism and taking all what the rich people have and giving it to the poor people. And we began to see the role of socialism, and now we began to analyze capitalism. When we saw capitalism, economic system where the rich get rich and the poor get poor, we began to talk about Black history. And as we talk about Black history, we began to point out that we were African. Black power pointed us toward Africa, and we began to talk about we Africans. We come from Africa. Africa is our land. And as we began to talk about Africa, we didn't know nothing about Africa except some of them folks that came out them big universities. Hell, they didn't know nothing about Africa either because they didn't teach them nothing about it. Even if they come down here with a doctorate degree, they didn't know a damn thing about Africa. But we started teaching them, learning about Africa. We started learning about Mali, Ghana, Mali, and great kingdoms that we had built not just hundreds of years ago, thousands of years ago, tens of thousands of years ago. And we began to say we were a great people before these people came here. Now with Black Power also, we had to teach people that their hair was beautiful. Wasn't nothing wrong with their hair. They tore our hair with nappy or whatever. Ain't nothing wrong with your African nose to suck in more air, or your African lips, or your beautiful black skin. Black was a bad word. People would kill you or put you in jail or beat you to death for calling them black. And we made black favorable word, a beautiful word. Then we made our hair a beautiful hair. Everybody began to wear fros and all this. This is where we had to come from now. And that we let people know that we weren't Negroes, we weren't niggas, we Africans. And as we began to tell people that they were Africans and learn about Africa, we looked at Africa. Now Africa got a revolution going, fighting against colonialism, and that the whites were dominating and ruling all of Africa, all of it. And that we began to fight. And when we began to join our movement with the African movement, we joined in with Angola, Mozambique, Guinea-Bissau, the PAIGC under the leadership of Amilcar Cabral. We joined in with Mugabe in Zimbabwe, and my brother in Mozambique, Samara Michel, and whatever. And they had guns. They were fighting. They were shooting down the enemy, the imperialist airplanes and whatever. And that as they began to fight, they began to tell us, we began to learn about colonialism and how white people dominated our people and how these people came to Africa and killed millions of people. Cecil Rhodes, the great white hero, had killed colonialists, had killed 50, 60 million people in Zimbabwe. And then in the Congo, how brutal the British or the Belgians or the Europeans and the capitalists had been to our people in the Congo, how they had killed millions, cut their ears off, cut their hands off, cut their feet off. And we began to see a larger picture, and this was happening to us all over the world. Now, again, this Black Power, it went all the way down into South and Central America and the Caribbean, and now you got people in Trinidad, down there where Stokely come from, born. Black Power, and they had a revolution down there, and they're demanding independence. And all throughout the Caribbean, people started saying Black Power. And as this Black Power began to grow, people began to put new names on it. Pan-Africanism. And we began to realize if we're going to have this Black Power that we're talking about, we need a land. And Malcolm X said land is the base of all revolution. And that common sense told us and pointed to us that Africa is the richest land in the world, full of diamonds, gold, oil, rubber, zinc, tea, copper, pearl, cobalt, manganese, and millions of other resources. And this belonged to us. But yet somebody else is over there digging it out, making themselves rich, building cars and factories and industries all over the world, and leaving us with not even a clean drop of water, nowhere to even go to the bathroom, and not even a decent meal. And we starving death on our continent, Africa, but yet we sitting on top of diamonds and gold and oil and rubber and everything else. And so we began to go out and teach people that they were Africans. That was a major battle. The Kwame said, all right, let's go. And I went out, boy, I became Brother Africa now. And everybody know me now as Brother Africa. I had to go into the universities and all of them, all across the country, sometimes across the world, teaching people, we Africans, we come from Africa, Africa is our land. And just by naming a few things, they thought I was Dr. Mukasa. But I was teaching them about Africa all up in Howard. I would go to Howard University and just go from room to room. If a teacher went in there, we Africans, we come from Africa. Africa's our land. And then as I add socialism, we need socialism. We need to take everything that the rich people got and give it to the poor people, give it to everybody, because Castro had influenced us. And we began to see that in order to have freedom and liberation, you got to have scientific socialism, because you can't lead one group of people with billions and trillions and another group of people with not even a clean drop of water to eat. So you take everything that take over these companies and run them yourself, and then use the profit from it to build houses, build schools, build institutions. And that's just common sense. We want to put all our children in school. We want to give everybody 3 meals a day. And we want to use the rich and make our people educated, not put them in prisons, but turn the prisons to great universities. Turn the militaries into build universities like they did in Cuba. You got one of the greatest medical schools in the world right there in Cuba, and named after great leaders that fought the revolution, you understand? And that so that's what we wanted to do. So when we start talking about Africa, we started talking about, and then we saw that Africa had been broken up into a whole lot of different pieces in this the Berlin Conference. And at the Berlin Conference, what they had done is met and divided the world up and made a whole bunch of little pieces out of it, and took the Africans on slave ships and put them in places all over the world and put them on little pieces of land and renamed that land and gave Africans 1,000 different names wherever they live. They have a different name other than Africa, and gave us so many identities and false identities. And what we're saying to our people, we got to come to Pan-Africanism, where you will have your true identity. You're African, whether you live in the South Pacific, whether you live in the Caribbean, or Jamaica, whatever, or Cuba, whatever you are on this earth, in Africa, or in Europe, in France, in Britain, wherever you are an African, and you'll never be free until Africa is free. And now, when we joined in with that and began to teach our people about Africa and whatever, and we talked about colonialism, and we helped run the white man off the continent of Africa. We helped end colonialism basically in Africa. We fought them. And when we made, and we began to get another leadership, at that time, Malcolm came and became the philosophical leader and taught us about Africa, taught us about Lumumba, made it clear that what you're doing in Mississippi is good, but you can't understand what's going on in Mississippi unless you understand what's going on in the Congo, unless you understand what's going on in Mississippi, what you understand what's going on in other parts of the world. And when we began to see what was going on in the other parts of the world, we saw imperialism. We saw a system that was bigger than that share, bigger than them little white Ku Klux Klan, but a system of imperialism that was operating worldwide, that was raping the land of the people, robbing all the resources out, bringing them outside and building billions of dollars of institutions, building car factories and everything else. But all this stuff is coming out of your land, Africa. And we realize that we have to take Africa back. And now all these different movements start saying Black Power, and that we say, how do we consolidate these movements? And this is what Kwame Nkrumah and Sekou Touré and now Lumumba, early on in the 60s, he become our symbol, because they murdered him because he was trying to unite the Congo, and him and Kwame Nkrumah and all of them tried to bring independence to Africa. But they come back now, and they brought in different Africans, and these Africans were trained by imperialism, and they began to come into Africa and kill the African leaders. They killed Lumumba. And Africans helped do it, even though the Belgium and the CIA and the United Nations played a major role, but Africans played a role in it. And they took all over Africa, they went back, and all the great leaders in Africa, they assassinated. Modibo Keita in Mali, they jailed Odinga Oginga and whatever in Kenya, and all over Africa, they coup d'etat and killed many presidents, probably 30, 40, 50, that they killed. And some places they killed thousands to bring in a whole nother form of colonialism. And now this colonialism take another phase. And when it took another phase, we got Black people governing, but they holding their guns not on Black Power guns, but now they load their guns on the Black Power movement, on Pan-African movement. They hold guns on their own people, where the same multinational corporations come into Africa and continue to dig the diamonds, the gold, the oil, the silver, the copper, the pearl, the cobalt, the manganese, the water, the mangoes, the peanuts. Everything is coming out of Africa, leaving the Africans on the continent starving, and leaving the Africans wherever they are in the world without anything. So what we're talking about now, we're talking about neo-colonialism. And this colonialism continued to operate in Africa. And now we got to go back into Africa, and we have to confront the neo-colonialists, and they have armed them. They have gave them guns, bombs, and other ammunition, but we must defeat them. Just like we defeated colonialism, the white faces, now we got to go back and defeat those that hold up neo-colonialism. Like South Africa, they tricked the people. When they were in trouble with apartheid, they brought in a group of neo-colonialists and said, I'm the leader. I'm now the leader. You don't have to fight apartheid no more. But at the same time, these people had organized these people, brought them in, and told them, you act like you're the leader, and they act like they were the leaders. And at the same time, the South African colonial imperialists stayed inside of South Africa with black presidents, a black leadership in the country, but yet they continue to allow the rich people and the foreigners to come in and take the diamond, the gold, and the cobalt, and whatever, and at the same time leaving the Africans with no food, no medicine, no housing, living in tents, living under the worst conditions that you could ever want to see. So even though you see a black face in government, economically, the whole continent of Africa is still in the hands of the imperialists. And what we have to do now is to take Africa, take the economic part of Africa, take the natural resources of Africa, and use it for the liberation of our people. So Pan-Africanism means that we all come together as one and geographically, ideologically come together and take our land and fight together. Because when you fight inside of Tanzania, South Africa, you're fighting NATO. Worldwide army will come at you. When you fight in the Congo, a worldwide NATO army is coming at you. United States leading the way. When you fight in Mississippi and Alabama, you're fighting a worldwide NATO army. They coming at you. So we have to build a worldwide Pan-African army, a worldwide African high command, and come together and fight for the liberation of Africa and our land. We have to build parties. We have to build revolutionary parties like the Uhuru movement, like the All African People Revolutionary Parties, and all that, and work for the total liberation and unification of Africa under an all-African scientific socialist government. Our destination is tied up into the freedom and liberation of Africa. We are not Americans. We are not Democrats. We're not Republicans. All of them work for imperialism, and we have to crush it. We have to destroy it, and we have to bring in revolutionary leaders and not these neo-colonial leaders. And again, Black Power and Pan-Africanism, we force them to teach us to put African studies in these schools. We put ourselves on the agenda, but they put in people that will hold us out and keep us back and control us. We need revolutionary leaders that's not under control of the imperialists, but under the direct leadership of Pan-Africanism and Pan-Africanist leaders. And this is what Kwame Nkrumah, Sekou Touré, and our brothers found point is our brothers in South and Central America are rising up. They're rising up in Colombia. They're rising up in Venezuela and Cuba, and all through South and Central America. They taking over the land, running the imperialists out, and coming together. And our struggle for Pan-Africanism means that we got to join in with every liberation movement in the world, socialist, communist movements in the world, and defeat the American imperialism and defeat imperialism worldwide and bring on scientific socialism, bring on a classless society, bring on freedom and liberation of Africa. Africa is the foundation for our liberation and freedom. So I guess I'll stop there, but thank you very much. And long live Africa, long live Pan-Africanism, and long live all the revolutionary forces of the world. Some are very small, some got governments, but whatever you got, let's come together, and together we can defeat imperialism. Thank you very much.
Uhuru, Uhuru.
Uhuru, Uhuru Sasa.
Uhuru Sasa. The camera caught me soaking everything in. I didn't even know I was on camera, but that was such an amazing and powerful presentation. Being the historian myself and hearing you detail that great history, I mean, I was looking in the chat. People were really, um, excited to hear and motivated, seeming motivated, and inspired to hear uh, the struggle that took place in the '60s. Um, there was a lot going on. I have some questions, myself. If anybody has any questions that they want me to raise, you can put it in the chat. But one thing came to mind when I was listening to you talk about the resistance that took place in the '60s, and I think you highlighted that the struggle for rights in this country wasn't just a passive, non-violent, resistance for civil rights. That there was actually people who were, fed up with the lynching, being arrested, and I guess it came to a head with the transition from the marching and fight for civil rights to, we want Black power. Uh, one thing that I guess a question that I have, because you brought up Sammy Young Jr. and what happened to Sammy Young when he went to a whites only restroom and was
toilet.
Charlie Young.
A toilet.
Oh, toilet. Okay, to a toilet and was murdered. Is that something that was on the minds like constantly during the '60s when you guys were out there, when you all were out there fighting for rights that you could be lynched, killed, murdered? Like today, I mean, I've been out on marches, and one of the concerns, most concern that I have, which I'm really not concerned about because it's whatever happens, but it's being arrested. But it seems that y'all had more concerns than just being arrested. You guys could be shot, lynched, and so forth. Is this something that y'all had discussions about? Was this a worry of all of y'all's, or you guys weren't even thinking about it? Y'all just was thinking about the goal, the end game.
Well, every night we laid down, we didn't know whether our house was going to be gunned, bombed, or whatever. And we go out on demonstration, or each one of us go out, we never know if we're going to see these people again. And a lot of people went out and didn't come back. They were killed, murdered, lynched, like Cheney, Swan, Goodman, Medgar Evers, and many, many, many others. I remember and so we faced bombs and guns every day. And that we faced. That was part of it. We was at war, and people die in war, and we were definitely at war, and we still at war, and that we were being killed and murdered, and you always thought about dying. And we had a song called, whenever we get together, we sing a song. This may be the last time, maybe the last time, I don't know, and that was saying goodbye to each other every night, because we never know which one of our soldiers would be killed in different forms.
Yeah, Malcolm X, and answering the question in regards to the price of freedom, he said the price of freedom is death. And if we're not willing to pay that price, then we'll never be a liberated people.
But Dr. King said, if you ain't found something worth dying for, you ain't worth living, and that therefore, if we definitely have to be willing to fight for our freedom, and we have to be ready to liberate Africa, and we know that there will be a revolution, and that we have to take our land back, and we're not looking for trying to avoid death because you're dying anyway, and that we just have to go out and be ready to do whatever it takes to liberate Africa and what have you. And that on our demonstrations, we lately and back in the day, when we demonstrated, Marley and all of them, when they demonstrated, we just took to the streets and went down the streets with bricks, balls, or whatever, and we didn't have the police leading our marches and whatever. We go out there throwing bricks and balls and burning and doing whatever at certain points, and that those were our marches and not the marches where you had the police and they, directing traffic for you and all that. after later on. But the real demonstrations, we took to the streets and went out and marched and fought and confronted the police, confronted the system, confronted the government, and whatever. The matter of fact, the last real march I was on here in Atlanta, when we took all them children from the AU Center and we went down through Atlanta, and they looted the police station, beat them up, beat the police up, looted the station, and looted some little store, and went down by the federal building and stopped there. And I made a speech about the government. They threw bricks and balls and in the government building and bust the FBI and whoever was in there up beside the head. Went down to the Capitol building, turned the governor's car over, and senators that was coming out across the street, threw bricks at them, bust them upside the head and whatever, and went down through downtown Atlanta and tore up a lot of stuff. And they had to bring the neo-colonialists, Maynard Jackson and the police forces. They had to bring them over into the AU Center and drop bombs on the school. And that brought out tens of thousands of people out in the streets, because all of them were tear gas throughout the school, and they came out and they threw bricks and balls at the police department and whatever. But the neo-colonialists dropped bombs on the students in the AU Center, and that Maynard Jackson and his forces. And matter of fact, the little cop, the police chief that dropped the bomb, he was the one that Rap Brown, when he used to follow Rap Brown as a police officer, had to follow Rap everywhere he go, or follow Snit. But Rap one day let him in the house. Said, "You a brother? Come on in." And when Rap opened the door and let him in, he sit in Rap's living room. Rap went in the kitchen, and Bell and Johnston, two of them, ran into Rap's room, and he had his rifle laying on the bed, wrote the serial number down, and then they bought that and gave it to the FBI and the police department. And that's how Rap got busted and started his prison whole thing. And that, but these neo-colonialists, they are traitors, and they work in the interest of imperialism, 100%. And that, and they will kill, murder, and they do everything to undermine movements, undermine revolution, all the way up to the point of assassinating them, like they did Thomas Sankara, like they did Lumumba in the Congo, coup d'etat, like they did Kwame Nkrumah in Ghana. But these people look like us, but they're just as loyal to imperialism. They're just loyal to Europe and domination as anybody. And that we definitely have to go into neo-colonialists, and they are very dangerous, and they give them arms, guns, bombs, and whatever. But we have to out-organize them and take it over, like they've just done in Colombia, and like they've done in Venezuela, and like Fidel Castro did in Cuba, and like we have done in Guinea. But they have brought the neo-colonialists in there again, or like they did in Ghana and other places. But Africa probably have had more assassinations of African leaders by the imperialists with these soldiers and neo-colonial soldiers and military operatives that they have put inside of Africa to maintain colonialism and neo-colonialism. And neo-colonialism is where you have a government, a president on top politically, but economically under the bottom, the multinational corporation continue to control the land, the diamonds, the gold, and the richness, and the people continue to be poor or even poorer. Because neo-colonialism is the highest stage of imperialism, and they raping harder now than it was under colonialism, because they can smell their days are numbered. And so they operate and raping Africa under full scale, and we can only stop it through directions from Fidel Castro and our brothers in Venezuela and Colombia and other revolutionary movements around the world. And we take example from Ho Chi Minh, from China, and from Russia and Putin or whoever. And we have to take directions from them and stop listening. Now, I want to just say again that you have a great revolutionary movement in Guinea-Bissau, and the PAIGC is operating there, and they have organized, and they got a grassroots organization there, and they are
Is that did we lose? Did we lose a comrade, Baba Ricks? Yeah, he froze, right? Uh, so we're just going to give him some time. He's experiencing some technical difficulties right now. Uh, but I'm going to get your questions in as soon as we have him back. I see we have, a lot of, questions in the chat. So I'm going to make sure we get those questions in as soon as we get Baba Ricks back. But again, like, it's such a powerful discussion. Some of the things he brought up when he talked about um, freedom now and how that was looked at as too radical. Asking for freedom now is too radical. We have to wait. And I'm sure the neo-colonialists, or what Baba Rick said, they called them Uncle Toms back then. And I agree with who was that put that? I think that was Brother Jabril Africa, who said that we still call them Uncle Toms now. Uh, I'm pretty sure they were with the white liberals talking about some, we have to hold off, wait, we don't want to, be too forceful and asking, making these demands, because we may turn off the power structure. They may not give us or make any concessions, because that's what they're looking for. When they're asking for things, they're looking for concessions. When ultimately we're looking to be a liberated and self-determined people. But it reminds me, historically, even during slavery, how you had some abolitionists who were like, not abolition now. We have to do it gradually. They were considered gradual abolitionists. And then the more radical, sector of our community was like, wait for what? No, end slavery now. We don't have time to wait, and that's the same thing, that happens today when people are talking about, let's bring about this liberation gradually. Don't be too radical. Don't be revolutionary. But the system itself, when we're talking about colonialism, neo-colonialism, and the urgency to end it, is because people are dying as a result of this system, as a result of this structure. So every minute we wait, millions of African people are losing their lives through forced labor, the exploitation and oppression that takes place under the current system, whether it's disease, lack of health care, not having enough resources to be able to feed, clothe themselves, through drug use and so forth, trying to escape the harshness of colonialism. So this is a genocidal system, a parasitic system, and we don't have time to wait. Wait at whose expense? But it's easy for the neo-colonialists to say wait, because they benefit to an extent from this relationship. And so, revolution is only going to jeopardize their position within the colonial structure. So I always appreciate him, bringing that to light, seeing that this is something that existed during then. And I guess it's a, innate, inherent part of the system in which, you have people who benefit, who do not want to see the radical transformation of the system of exploitation. So, I had some questions too about Black Power, what sort of sparked and motivated this sudden call for Black Power. And he's on his way back, so just give it a minute or two. But with that being said, just some housekeeping. I want to again welcome everybody to the second day of our event organized by the African Unity Movement for Decolonization. I am Ikemba Ojore. And so, this is going to be a time to never forget. And there's Baba Ricks right there. And just really quick, just feel free to move around within the platform. We carefully selected our speakers with the goal of bringing some really thought-provoking and disruptive ideas to the table. And so there's going to be open sessions We'll have live marketing. Visit any session you desire. Stick around for the Q&As in the sessions, and feel free to use the chat in the sessions. So, make sure you're being interactive, engage with the speakers, ask questions, get some feedback. And there's the link where you can also access the online program located in the reception area, so you can see who's speaking at what time and what sessions that you may want to jump in, and you can go from session to session. So and if you can't stay the entire time, make sure you use the calendar icon located on each session to add events to your personal calendar to remind you when to return to the platform. Be sure and take advantage of the networking opportunities. And you can click on people and locate your friends and family on the platform. You can message them directly or schedule a 3-minute video chat. And make sure you visit our expo booths and learn about the AUMD member organizations. And lastly, you have access to all the recordings after each session is over. You can go back and rewatch the sessions you didn't catch live up to the next 30 days. So make sure you do that. And so we have Baba Ricks back with us. Are you there? I don't see you, but are you there, Baba Ricks? I know yesterday I was catching up on a lot of the sessions that I had missed. So make sure you hit them replays. I mean, a lot of our our speakers, I'm gonna say all of our speakers, from what I had gathered, came very prepared, and is deepening neo-colonialism. And so I think it's very important that we check those sessions out and get a better understanding, and not just take this information and keep it to ourselves, but also take this information and use it as a weapon. Go out there and fight neo-colonialism, and make sure that you're spreading this information to family and friends and people in your community. And so the next sessions begin at 9:30. I think we're going to wrap it up because Baba Ricks is having some technical issues. I was really looking forward to some of these other questions that I had, but I want to say, I wanted to, say this to Baba Ricks before he had departed. I wanted to honor Baba Ricks, and I think many of us here will probably more than likely do the same, is honor Baba Ricks for his service, for his fight, his struggle to liberate African people, not just in the United States, but African people around the globe. As we heard in this story, he talked about the Africans in America who, went into the UN and beat up the South African Assembly people. Like, this is Pan-Africanism. You hurt one of us in one place, you're hurting all of us. And that's why we understand the necessity of Pan-Africanism, is because if we allow one group of Africans to be oppressed, if they're allowed and find justification in the oppression of one group of Africans, what's going to stop them from oppressing all of us? And this is what has happened historically when they colonized all of the continent, or 90% of the continent of Africa, after the discussion at the Berlin Conference, when they decided how they were going to divide the African continent up. They didn't say, hey, we're going to, just colonize the Mende or the Timide, people, or, we're just concerned about, the people, the Yoruba or the Igbo people. We're not worried about, the Zulu. That wasn't the discussion that was being had. To them, Africa was for all African people, and all of the African continent was for the taking. And this is why it's important when we adopt the philosophy of Pan-Africanism to understand that, we are not colonized because we're just Mende, or we're, practicing our particular spiritual, indigenous spiritual belief systems, the many that we have, is because we're an African people, right? It's no concern. They don't care if you're Jamaican, Haitian, and so forth. They're finding ways to exploit our lands and exploit our labor. And so the only way that we can overturn this relationship is through unity. So with that being said, I think we're going to wrap it up. And again, 9:30 is when our sessions start, but you can go to the description page and I'm sorry, the reception area, and check out the schedule and see whose session that you want to attend. So with that being said, this is the second day of our conference, Pan-African Unity, or Parish, the Abolition of Neo-Colonialism. I am Ikemba Ajore, and thank you for joining us.